Walmart, the world's largest retailer, issued a stark warning that sent ripples through the entire retail industry. The company announced that new tariffs on Chinese goods would force them to raise prices on everyday items, impacting millions of American families who rely on Walmart for affordable essentials. The list of affected products was extensive: car seats, cribs, luggage, handbags, bicycles, items that are not just luxuries, but necessities for households across the country. For many, these are the basics that keep daily life running smoothly. These tariffs, essentially a tax on imports, threaten to disrupt Walmart's finely tuned global supply chain, which depends on the smooth flow of goods from factories overseas to store shelves in the US. A proposed 25% tariff would have a massive impact on both Walmart's business and its customers, potentially adding billions to the cost of goods sold each year. The company's core promise, everyday low prices, was suddenly at risk, threatening the trust Walmart had built with its shoppers over decades. Walmart faced a tough choice: absorb the costs and hurt profits, or pass them on to consumers and risk losing their loyalty. Every decision carried significant consequences for the company's future. The trade war forced Walmart into a delicate balancing act, navigating between customer expectations and harsh economic realities, all while trying to maintain its competitive edge. As the dispute escalated, retailers like Walmart scrambled to adapt to new lists of targeted goods and fluctuating tariff rates, constantly updating prices and rethinking sourcing strategies. The central question loomed large: who would ultimately pay for these new taxes? Would it be the retailer, the supplier, or the everyday shopper at the checkout counter? The answer was a complex mix, with consequences that rippled far beyond Walmart, affecting the entire American retail landscape and the broader economy. For Walmart and its shoppers, the billion-dollar price tag was no longer hypothetical. It was about to become a reality, changing the way Americans shop and budget for the foreseeable future. To understand Walmart's challenge, let's break down tariffs, their taxes on imported goods, designed to make foreign products more expensive and boost domestic sales. The Trump administration's 2018 tariffs targeted China, aiming to address trade imbalances and alleged unfair practices. Tariffs started at 10%, then jumped to 25%, covering everything from steel to consumer goods. This marked a sharp shift from decades of free trade policy, creating uncertainty for businesses dependent on imports. For Walmart, which relies on global sourcing to keep prices low, these tariffs were a direct hit to its business model. Suddenly, a huge portion of its inventory faced steep new costs. The impact rippled across the economy, affecting manufacturers, retailers, and ultimately, consumers. For Walmart, the trade war wasn't just policy, it was a daily operational crisis. The tariffs had officially arrived at the checkout counter. The financial impact of tariffs on Walmart was immediate and massive. In 2019, Walmart's CFO warned of billions in potential costs due to tariffs on key categories like furniture, electronics, and apparel. For every $1 billion of Chinese imports, a 25% tariff meant an extra $250 million in costs. With tens of billions in annual imports, the burden was staggering. Walmart's razor-thin margins left little room to absorb these costs. Executives cited tariffs as a major headwind in earnings calls, highlighting the volatility and unpredictability they brought. The company had to track thousands of products, each with different tariff rates, and decide whether to absorb costs or raise prices. Managing this complexity became a monumental internal effort. The trade war turned Walmart's predictable business into a high-stakes financial puzzle. Walmart didn't sit idle when costs began to rise across the globe. The company, known for its razor-thin margins and everyday low prices, knew it had to act quickly and decisively to protect its business and its customers. It launched a multi-pronged response to rising costs, bringing together teams from logistics, sourcing, and finance to craft a comprehensive plan. First, Walmart accelerated its efforts to shift sourcing away from China, where tariffs and labor costs were climbing. The company began turning to countries like Vietnam, Cambodia, and India, seeking out new partners and more cost-effective manufacturing hubs. This wasn't easy. Moving supply chains meant vetting new factories, ensuring quality standards, and building new relationships from the ground up. It required months of negotiation and on-the-ground inspections. Data soon showed a clear drop in U.S. imports from China and a corresponding rise in shipments from Southeast Asia, as Walmart led the charge in diversifying its supply chain. With its massive scale, Walmart was able to set trends that other retailers soon followed. Walmart also pressured suppliers to absorb some of the new tariff costs, forcing factories to cut their own margins or find new efficiencies through automation and process improvements. For smaller suppliers, this was tough. Many struggled to keep up with Walmart's demands and the new economic realities. But Walmart's sheer buying power gave it leverage that few could match, allowing it to negotiate better deals and maintain its competitive edge. Finally, Walmart made tough pricing decisions, carefully analyzing which products could bear higher prices without losing customers. Using advanced data analytics, the company targeted price increases where customers were less sensitive, and absorbed some costs on key items to protect its value image. Still, many costs were inevitably passed on, especially for products where Walmart dominated the market and had little competition. The company's strategy became a delicate balancing act: protect profits, keep prices low, and maintain customer loyalty, all while navigating a rapidly changing global landscape. The trade war forced Walmart to redraw its global map, shifting trade routes and rethinking long-standing partnerships. Every aspect of its supply chain was scrutinized and optimized, from sourcing to shipping to store shelves. Every move was about survival in a new, more expensive world, where only the most adaptable retailers could thrive. Walmart's bold response set the tone for the entire retail industry, showing how agility and scale can turn challenges into opportunities. Walmart's response to tariffs rippled across the country, touching every corner of the retail landscape. What began as a policy change quickly became a nationwide shift, affecting not just Walmart, but also the millions of Americans who shop, work, and do business with the retail giant every day. Shifting sourcing strategies dramatically changed U.S. port traffic. West Coast ports, once bustling with goods from China, saw a noticeable decline, while East and Gulf Coast ports experienced a surge as products began arriving from new countries. This realignment of trade routes was visible in the flow of ships and containers, redrawing the map of American imports. This shift didn't stop at the ports. It rippled through trucking, warehousing, and local economies, impacting jobs and business operations. It was a clear demonstration of how a single decision made in Walmart's Arkansas headquarters could reshape logistics and supply chains nationwide, affecting communities large and small. Walmart's vast logistics network had to adapt quickly. New shipping lanes were established, inventory lead times were altered, and transportation routes were reimagined to keep shelves stocked and costs down. The entire retail circulatory system was essentially rerouted, requiring coordination across thousands of suppliers, carriers, and distribution centers to keep up with the new reality. The tariffs also had mixed effects on U.S. manufacturers, creating both opportunities and new challenges. Some American manufacturers gained relief from Chinese competition, finding new demand for their products. But for many others, the reliance on Chinese components meant their own costs rose, making finished goods more expensive and sometimes less competitive. Walmart's search for alternatives rarely led back to U.S. factories. Instead, it turned to other low-cost countries like Vietnam, India, and Mexico, further globalizing its supply chain and shifting the balance of international trade. The trade war's impact was complex and far-reaching, challenging the idea that tariffs would simply boost American industry. Instead, it revealed the intricate web of global commerce and the difficulty of untangling it. The reality is clear: global supply chains are deeply interconnected, and every change, no matter how small, can have far-reaching and sometimes unexpected consequences for businesses, workers, and consumers alike. For shoppers, the impact was clear. Prices went up. J.P. Morgan estimated tariffs would cost the average American household hundreds per year. For Walmart's budget-conscious customers, even small increases in groceries or household goods hit hard. Price hikes were targeted. Electronics, luggage, and items with few alternatives saw the biggest jumps. Shoppers felt the difference at checkout, even if they didn't know why. Many faced tough choices: buy less, switch to private labels, or look elsewhere for deals. Walmart had to absorb as much cost as possible, knowing its customers were highly price-sensitive. Tariffs acted as a regressive tax, hitting lower-income families hardest. Walmart's core shoppers, those living paycheck to paycheck, were among the most affected. The trade war's burden landed squarely on America's most vulnerable consumers. Tariffs didn't just affect prices, they put pressure on Walmart's workforce too. With over 1.6 million US employees, any hit to profits meant a renewed focus on efficiency. Store workers faced tighter schedules and higher performance demands as Walmart sought savings. The uncertainty also made Walmart more cautious about hiring and expansion. Sourcing and logistics teams had to renegotiate with thousands of suppliers and reconfigure global networks, an enormous, stressful task. The invisible labor behind the scenes became even more critical. For employees, the trade war meant more work, more pressure, and less predictability. The fallout from tariffs was felt at every level of the company. The trade war triggered lasting changes at Walmart. The company permanently diversified its supply chain, adopting a China Plus One strategy to reduce risk. Investment in technology and data analytics accelerated, giving Walmart better visibility and agility in its operations. Private label brands like Great Value became more important, offering stable, lower-priced alternatives as national brands got pricier. Walmart also became more vocal in Washington, advocating for trade policies that protect its business and customers. The experience made Walmart more resilient and politically engaged. The lessons learned are now embedded in its corporate DNA. The trade war's legacy is a smarter, more adaptable Walmart. The Trump-era tariffs were a stress test for Walmart and the entire retail industry. The company responded with sweeping changes, diversifying suppliers, investing in technology, and carefully managing prices. The effects rippled across supply chains, ports, and American households. Walmart emerged more resilient, but the cost was higher prices and greater pressure on workers and customers. The experience revealed how global trade policy can reshape daily life in the U.S. As debates over tariffs continue, the challenge remains. How can retailers balance low prices with resilient supply chains? The answer will shape the future of retail and the price we all pay at the checkout.